Good morning. This is April the 21st, Monday, 2025. We are in BBIS second semester compulsory English class, where yesterday we were reading about the relational system in the previous essay. Let me spend a few minutes talking about the conclusion of that. Just a minute. Essay. Now I remember I forgot to. Let me see. Okay. So, in conclusion, first point to note is that every theory has a limitation. So this theory, that is the integrative model of intercultural communication competence, it also has limitation. What is the limitation? The propositions in this model, they apply to upper limits. There can be examples when these ideas fail. For example, you go to Japan or America or any Saudi country, being a Nepali. So you are the actor there, right? You are highly motivated to talk to the Saudi Arabian person. For example, in the essay, Where Do We Stand? By Lisa Davis, you read last year. In the opening paragraph, the Saudi Arabian is very motivated to talk to the American. We guess the Saudi Arabian also has the knowledge of the context and skill of speaking English language. But do you see, the American keeps backing off until he reaches in the corner, and finally the American feels that he is being bullied by the Saudi, and the encounter ends with frustration. Why this happens? One answer is the predictions that this model makes, that if a co-actor has motivation, knowledge and skill, he will be a competent communicator. This fails. Why does it fail? Why does it fail? The answer, why does it fail, is in the next essay we're reading today. Now, to tell you right now, it fails because the American comes from individualistic culture. The American comes from low context culture. The American comes from a culture that follows monochromatic time, forward moving linear time, whereas the Saudi comes from collectivistic culture. The Saudi comes from high context culture, and the Saudi comes from polychromatic time, society that follows polychromatic time. If you have gone through the next essay, which I assigned you yesterday, you will understand these words. Therefore, although the Saudi has motivation, knowledge, skill, he fails to communicate with the American. So the point is, the ideas in the essay do not apply in 100% cases. There may be cases where the predictions of smooth communication may not work. And I give an example from the essay, Where Do We Stand? Okay. Then, here is an example. Suppose you go to America. That is your host culture, right? You are a Nepali, you go to America. So an American that you meet there, he has a dominant status in comparison to you because you are a migrant, right? An American is a native. Now, that native, like the president or the vice president or other people as you can see on television, that native may completely reject to listen to you for no reason at all. You have motivation, you want to talk to, you have knowledge, everything, but he may simply say no to you, right? So, competence in any encounter is contingent on all parties of interaction. See, competence does not mean only actor having motivation, knowledge, skill. Competence means both parties, the actor and co-actor, should be motivated. Both parties should have knowledge. Both parties should have skill. Then only communication happens smoothly. As an example, I said, you go to America, the co-actor you're trying to talk to. Suppose you're driving your car and a traffic police stops you and knocks at the window. You open the window. You have interaction with traffic police. Now, the traffic police is a native police personnel. You are an immigrant. And the traffic police asks you some questions, right? And you want to talk to them. In that encounter, chances are the traffic police, being native speaker, native American, has a higher status than you. And he may dominate you in the conversation. He may have higher power relation as you read yesterday. Right? He may not be motivated to talk to you more and simply say, give me your cards, you pay fine. You plead your case, he doesn't listen to you. Right? In such situations, the theory fails. The model fails. And it is a theory because it fails. If what a theory says is 100% true, it is no more a theory, it's a fact. What is a theory? Theory is bunch of assumptions that can predict certain thing. Bunch of assumptions that can predict certain thing. For example, here are assumptions which can predict when communicative encounter will go smoothly and when communicative encounter will not go smoothly. But these predictions are not always 100% true, right? You can be highly motivated, you can have good knowledge of the content, function and language, you can have all the skills of communicative procedures, right? But still, the communicator of another culture reject your legitimacy, there may be the little chance of a competent interaction. A very good example, I remember, I don't know if you remember, if you are socially active, if you have global political awareness. A month ago, Ukrainian President Zelensky came to White House Oval Office for a talk with Donald Trump to sign a pact to end the war. And do you remember, it was viral video, how Donald Trump shows the finger, right? And says, no, you don't have cards to play, you can't speak. And how Zelensky is dominated in that Oval Office. Why? Because Zelensky is alone and there are 8-9 American people. And you saw how he was insulted, right? Why? Because the host culture, president and his people, they simply rejected Zelensky's legitimacy to communicate there. Zelensky was motivated. Zelensky had the knowledge about the subject matter. Zelensky had the skills to talk diplomatically, but he was rejected. So what the model says may not always apply. I'm afraid I speak like this, and if I go to America with a visa, in immigration, they are saying that they are going to use AI to search all the internet about me. So AI will find out my speech because I upload this on the YouTube. They watch I'm criticizing American establishment and they reject my visa and deport me, chances are, because I'm speaking openly, because I'm criticizing, right? But such discussion is necessary because I brought example, a very true example to show you how the predictions this model makes may not work. Okay, what else do we have? So, as I said earlier, in a model, in a theory, there are beliefs, assumptions, and they predict behavior, but that's not absolutely true, right? If it was always true, it will be a fact, not a theory or model, right? What is the key? The benefactor will find some significant personal meaning in it and be ever mindful that the symbol is not the thing to which it refers. I don't get this last line. Okay, let me summarize. The point we read is that, yes, this is a model of integrative intercultural communicative competence, which begins by discussing how people are coming together today and how there are more intercultural interaction encounters happening and how there may be problems, and then begins by saying that the existing models of how to communicate effectively, they are fragmented, then proposes an integrative model of intercultural communication competence and says that this model has three components or three systems of analysis: the individual system, the episodic system, and the relational system. And then discusses individual system, where it says that there are three factors that make an individual a competent communicator. They are high motivation, good knowledge, and skill. Then goes on to discussing episodic system, where it says that under episodic system, we discuss those characteristics of an actor or communicator which gives the co-actor the impression that the actor must have high communicative competence. The way I am presenting, if you feel that as a teacher I'm very competent to make you understand, maybe, may not be, then you will have high opinion about competence. So all these qualities, the way I'm doing even my dress, even my glasses, even my body language gesture, and the way I explain, all these things make you or influence your perception about this actor. So in episodic system, we analyze we see the actor's performance in connection to the co-actor for one single incident. Then we read about the relational system, where we said in relational system we are not analyzing one day's episode or one episode or one incident. We are analyzing the entire interactions throughout the complete relationship between the actor and the co-actor. For example, if you analyze all the multiple meetings between Zelensky and the American counterpart, if you analyze all the meetings, there will be relational interpretation. If you analyze any one meeting and consider how Zelensky spoke, how Trump spoke, it will be episodic analysis. If you analyze only how Zelensky spoke and decide whether Zelensky had motivation, whether Zelensky had knowledge, whether Zelensky had skill, that will be individual system. The same applies here. If you focus on me as a teacher and see whether I'm motivated, I have knowledge, skill, it will be individual system. But if you say on July 21st, 2025, Monday, how did the teacher teach in the class and how did they understand, and you consider your impression, you consider my ability, motivation, all that, for one day, there will be episodic system. And if you analyze the whole semester from March 20 to August, in a plan, if you have classes until August, if you take all the 6 months, analyze all 48 classes and consider how you felt, how I taught, that will be relational system. But the point is, all these systems make predictions, and these predictions may work, may not work. They are not 100% error proof. That's what we read about the previous essay. Now let me move on to the next essay. I'll advise you that whenever you begin to read an essay, go to the introduction in the book, and you will see that in the introduction there is some very useful information. For example, here on page 74 in my PDF file, you have a paragraph that talks about this essay we are going to read. Let's read this. So before Stella Ting to Me, the previous essay was by Brian P. Spitzberg. This essay is by Stella Ting to Me. Before she wrote this essay, communication scholars examined the issue of conflict only as it applied to a single culture. So the topic of this essay is two people, a Saudi, an American. So two cultures, they're in a party. I'm referring from the previous essay, last year's essay, where do we stand? Now, the Saudi in that party comes very close to the American. The American backs off. The Saudi keeps following the American. And at one point, the American A ends in the corner of the room, and he feels bullied. He feels bad. So this communicative encounter ends in a bitter way. This is an example of conflict. What is conflict? When two things cannot go together. When they strike one another. They cannot go together. Right? So this essay that we're going to read is about conflict arising when two people from two different cultures come together to have a communication. Right? Read further. Conflict is inevitable in all social and personal relationships. So Stella begins with this claim, central claim, thesis you can say, major claim. Therefore, any analysis of its elements of conflict, this essay discusses what is conflict, this essay discusses what causes conflict, and this essay discusses how to manage conflict. What is conflict? What causes conflict? And how we can manage conflict. What conflict? Intercultural communication conflict. Needs to be applied to intercultural communication settings. As a starting point to our approach, Ting to Me identifies some of the problems created by interpersonal disharmony in the intercultural setting. See the phrases, problems. So this essay talks about problems created by interpersonal disharmony, conflict between two people, where in intercultural setting, to help you improve your capacity to clarify and regulate conflict. So how to clarify conflict, how to control conflict. She explains three features of intercultural conflict. Three features. That's why yesterday I assigned 3 people to make a presentation. Do you remember? I had given 3 people because I know there are 3 sections. First, a framework that uses low context versus high context. So Stella Ting to Me begins with a framework like Brian Spitzberg. Brian Spitzberg also begins with a framework. What framework? The framework of integrative intercultural communication competence model, which has 3 parts: individual system, episodic system, relational system. Here also we have a framework. So the first part of it also is a three-part. So the first part of framework talks about cultural variability. What is cultural variability? The claim that cultures around the world differ from one another. Simple. Cultural variability. Variable. They keep changing. Variable is something that is not constant. That has variation. That has difference. Even inside Nepal, you go to Bhaktapur, you will see one culture. You go to Lalitpur, you will see another culture. Same Newar people of the valley, Newar of a Lalitpur, Newar of a Bhaktapur, and Kirti, but they are not same. Their languages may slightly differ. Cultures differ from place to place, country to country. That's cultural variability. That's why people have conflict. So, framework that uses low context versus high context culture. What is low context? Where people do not come very close and where people emphasize on message, not on relation. What is high context? Where people focus more on relation and less on message. If you have gone through the essay, you will get my point. Otherwise, you won't understand what I am explaining. And monochronic and polychronic time is advanced to demonstrate why and how cultures are different. So, first section answers, the first section of this essay answers this question: why and how cultures are different and similar. We have conflict. We have conflict created by interpersonal disharmony. Conflict is created by interpersonal disharmony in intercultural setting. Now the question comes, why we have conflict? Okay, we have conflict. We read that we have conflict. The question is, why we have conflict? One answer comes, we have conflict because cultures are different and similar. We have conflict because cultures are different and similar. Second, some basic assumptions and factors that contribute to conflict are discussed. What causes conflict? What beliefs cause conflict? For example, if I come from monochromatic time, for me time moves forward. I'm an American. Time is clockwise. I value time as economic resource. So I have a conflict. I want to solve it within 30-minute time because I have another appointment. Now, you come from polychromatic culture where time doesn't move forward, it also moves backward. So you analyze the context. You focus more on relation. You don't want to lose your face by being defeated, because in polychromatic cultures, high context cultures, relationship, maintaining good relation is more important. Whereas in monochromatic cultures, low contact cultures, individualistic cultures, solving the issue is more important, maintaining relation is less important. For individualistic, monochromatic, low contact cultures, what is important? For collectivistic, polychromatic, high context cultures, how is important? For individualistic, monochromatic, low contact cultures, the content or subject matter or the message is more important. For collectivistic, polychromatic, high context cultures, the subject or content is less important. People are more important. Surrounding is more important. Maintaining relation is more important. If my communication with you makes you feel bad and later on you stop talking to me, I will avoid saying that to you. Because for me, transferring the message is less important. Considering the impact of the message is more important. If my message makes you feel bad, I won't convey the message. But for an American, the individualist, the message is more important, impact is less important. So even if you feel hurt, they will say no. That's why in America, right in high school. They teach students, especially they train to say no, particularly for four things. For example, say no to alcohol, they teach. Say no to drugs, they teach. Say no to sexual proposals, they teach. So they teach to say no. Have you ever been taught in your family to say no? No, our families often teach to agree, to say yes, to obey. Right, see the difference. Okay. Finally, in the third section, she offers a series of skills that can help individuals manage conflict when it develops in the intercultural encounter. So you will see the topic is intercultural conflict, right? So first, the writer defines conflict, right? Then the writer presents the framework of cultural variability, where she talks about individualistic and collectivistic cultural dimensions. Then she talks about low context and high context cultures. Then she talks about monochromatic time cultures and polychromatic time cultures. And all these three things explain why cultures vary from one another. Second, or let's say third, or second, let's say, in second section, she talks about assumptions, beliefs, right, and factors that contribute to conflict, that create conflict. She talks about conflict styles, right? And in the last section, she offers a solution. Solution. How to manage intercultural conflict. So she begins by what is conflict and ends by saying how to manage conflict. Now we come to the essay. In your mailbox, I have mailed you a number of questions. Are you aware? Are you aware? I prepared those questions last night. They are not from Google. They are not from Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini as you people do. Yesterday over there somebody made a presentation, made many faults. As I inquired, found that the presentation was prepared by Copilot. She confessed. It was faulty. There were lots of errors. So don't do that. I'm not teaching you using Copilot. I'm teaching you because I spent the night reading and making comments. Those 99 questions were prepared last night. And I'm telling this to inspire you. If your teacher spends nights reading, you too should spend at least days reading, if not nights. Okay? Whether you follow or not, my advice is up to you. Okay. So the topic of the essay is managing intercultural conflicts effectively. The central word here we have is conflict. Okay? What is conflict? Okay, I have two items and I hit together. Thank God the pen didn't break. Please strike together. Sometimes it is good when you have fire stone. You strike and you burn fire. But it's not always good. Strike is a bad word. Strike. Nobody comes to college, right? Strike. Buses don't move. Strike. As a noun. So conflict. What kind of conflict? Cultural conflict. What kind of cultural conflict? Intercultural conflict. A Saudi, I don't know why the same example comes all the time in my mind. It's so easy. And the American, we read last time in our essay. Intercultural conflict. So it discusses what is conflict, as I said. Then it also discusses how to manage conflicts effectively. So that in future, when you go to other countries, your communication with foreign people may be smooth and more successful. Let's read what the author says in the essay. Okay. I'll read the paragraph and explain to you. And as I read the paragraph, you should be able to see how I read. And you should be able to learn how to read. This is a research article. It's a very difficult kind of writing. Okay. So she begins with a statement. First sentence is, conflict is inevitable in all social and personal relationships. What does it do here? She shows that the topic is important. The topic is important because in your life also, sometimes somebody will see conflict. You can't think of life without conflict. Everybody, everywhere, every time has a conflict. This morning I had a conflict with my wife. I woke up around 4. She had to wake up around 4:15 to prepare breakfast for me. And we had a conflict. Right? It's very natural. But here we are not talking about family conflicts. We are talking about communication conflicts between people from different cultures. Then he defines or she defines the word conflict. It comes from Latin word com and phlegia or phlegere. I don't know how to pronounce Latin words, which means to strike together. And then she further defines the word conflict. What is that? A state of dissonance. What is dissonance? When two things do not agree. When two things don't agree. Collision. They hit each other, right? Between two forces or systems or cultures. Now this dissonance can be open or subtle, hidden, right? Now she talks about the definition of conflict in this essay, in this context. This you should get by heart, understand. What is conflict? The perceived and or actual incompatibility of values. What is value? Belief. Expectations, processes or results between two or more parties from different cultures over substantive or relational issues. Let's spend 1 minute time. You should get this definition by heart. You should understand this, right? You should be able to write in the exam. First, conflict can be perceived or actual. Pseudo conflict. There is no real conflict, but you feel there is a conflict. Or actual. What is conflict? Incompatible. You can't go together, right? So your values, your belief doesn't match. In In the essay A Coward by Premchand, you read last year, Keshav and Prema are in the Victoria Park dating, and they have this kind of value conflict. Prema says, I adhere traditions, so I can't challenge my parents. For me, my father, mother are everything, Prema says. But Keshav says, I'm a modernist. I can go to any extent for my freedom, for my choices. So you have conflict of values. Prema and Keshav have different beliefs, so they conflict. And you see, a very good example I remember, how the conflict ends. Prema commits suicide. There is a disaster. That is also a kind of caste conflict, right? You can say this is also cultural conflict. Then expectations. Keshav expects Prema to revolt against her parents. Keshav says, have you told your mom, dad? Prema says, wait. I am looking for proper time. And Keshav says, I can challenge anybody, the expectation. But Keshav fails in the expectation. Because when Keshav's father, Panditji, bangs the ground and says, get out of my home, Keshav surrenders. Right? Then, processes or outcomes, results between two or more parties, Keshav Prema, or two or more cultures from different cultures over substantive or, now this point, last point, understand. What is a substantive issue? It comes from substance. The word substantive comes from substance. Substance means essence, content, idea, the what? Substance. For example, American people, Western people, focus more on the idea, content, substance of the debate, conflict. They focus on the what. And a relational issue. Relational means relationship. The how. So substantive issue means issues related to subject matter, the what happened. Relational issue means issues based on how people feel. I said something and she begins to cry. So what I said is substance. What happened to her is relation. She felt bad. Yesterday in that class, I was teaching on camera. I pronounced one student's name, and within seconds her face went dark because she didn't like her name being pronounced loudly in the classroom. But I used her name as an example to make a point. Instantly I realized as a teacher that I made a mistake by singling her out. But we are human beings. We make errors. We are not even error proof. And when the class ended, I went to her. I said, sorry, you felt hurt. She kept mum. She wouldn't speak to me. I realized that as a teacher, I shouldn't single any student out in the classroom. Right? Relation. And even now, as I share this incident with you in this class, one day after, I feel hurt myself as a teacher because I made her feel bad. This is relation. For us, in our culture, relations are more important. For Westerners, the message, the content is more important. Okay. Now, such differences as we read in values, expectations, processes, results, they are expressed through intercultural conflict. Right? Now, note in your note copy, intercultural conflict, draw an arrow. It starts with intercultural miscommunication. Just it is intercultural miscommunication, right? Now, often leads to misinterpretation. Draw an arrow and write misinterpretation, miscommunication. If not checked on time, leads to misinterpretation. You say something, I couldn't hear you properly. You said something, I didn't get properly, I got confused. Miscommunication. Now misinterpretation. I make a wrong meaning of what you said. For example, yesterday in that classroom, I was teaching the point of trust. The topic was trust. The point was, if there is trust, you share information. If there is no trust, you don't share information. And what I did, I just went around the class, I said, give me your mobile phone and unlock the screen. So somebody unlocked the screen. I said, look, she is trusting me. Then I went to that student and said, unlock the screen. She said, no. Then I came to the front and I said to the class, look at her. She can't unlock her screen to me because she doesn't trust me. And instantly she felt bad. Because I named her. I was on camera. Right? So what I'm making a point here? Misinterpretation. Now I feel, now I wanted her to understand that I was using that situation as an example to make the class understand a point in classroom. But she took it personally. She took it personally. And she didn't like the idea that I named her. And I have seen this generation, you people, do not like being singled out. In our time, it was okay. When teachers singled us out in class, we took it normally. But these days I have felt, any student, if we point at you and single you out, you feel very bad. This is what I should understand about this generation, right? So, miscommunication, misinterpretation. I communicated, she misinterpreted for personal offense, then starts off with, okay, intercultural miscommunication often leads to misinterpretation. And then, if miscommunication goes unmanaged or unclarified, it can lead to, it can become an actual personal conflict. When at the end of the class, when I turned off the camera, I went to her particularly. And I said, you felt hurt because I spoke your name? She was mum. And I could see her face, she was angry. So that ended with a personal conflict between the teacher and the student. Right? Okay, let's move to second paragraph. So as I read this like this to you on the screen, I'm also showing you how we read seriously. We focus on every word, every phrase, every syllable, and we analyze what is there and we make notes. Second paragraph. Now, in the second paragraph, the writer presents the plan of the essay. First paragraph, she introduces the topic. The topic is conflict. What conflict? Intercultural conflict. How it begins with miscommunication, leading to misinterpretation. Miscommunication, misinterpretation, conflict. 3 steps. Miscommunication, misinterpretation, conflict. Second paragraph, she presents the plan of the essay. What do you expect to find in this essay? So she says that this article develops into 3 sections. 1, cultural variability perspective. Who was given to present this section yesterday? Who was given? You were given. Okay. Then, now this section emphasizes identity construal variation. See that one difficulty in reading these essays is that there are phrases which are concepts, which are loaded with deep meaning. For example, look here the word. Identity construal variations. What does it mean? As you grow, as we grow in our culture, we have this question. Who am I? Who am I? It may have 2 answers. I am, and let's add one more point here. I am an independent individual. I wrote the word independent with blue to emphasize, to focus you. This is what is important. One idea. I am an independent individual. Second answer can be, I am a son. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a brother. I am a teacher. So do you see, the first construction of identity, the first construction of identity is independent concept of identity. Independent concept. I am independent. I do not depend upon other people. So I am responsible for my deeds. I am my own master. I will decide what to do in my future. I will decide whom to marry. I will decide what job I want. I'll decide what faculty I'll study. Raise your hand if you yourself decided to study BBIS at LSEM. One, two, many. Okay, down. Raise your hand if you believe the decision to study BBIS at LSEM was not your personal decision, it was a family decision. Okay, now I see you people, this generation is more individualistic oriented. There is more influence of Western culture here, right? I remember I took my son to Dhulikhel for joining bachelor's in engineering. I wanted him to study civil engineering, and he was at the window to submit the form, and he was filling the subject choice, civil, mechanical, etc. And before he could tick the box, I was there. I said, civil lagav. He turns back and says, ल बुवा सिभिल लगाइदिन्छु, फेल भएर मैले पढ्न नसके तपाईँ जिम्मा है त. I froze. Instantly I had goosebumps. I froze hearing his answer. हुन्छ बुवा सिभिल लगाइदिन्छु, फेल भए तपाईँ जिम्मा है त. I instantly said, no, तिमीलाई जे मन लाग्छ त्यही पढ, फेल हुन पाइँदैन. And he ticked mechanical. Today he is doing PhD in mechanical engineering. Fine. That was his personal decision. Independent self. Father had no role. In my daughter's case, first I took her to BBA around 2013-14. She read for a couple of weeks, 1 week. Then I was in charge, BBA in charge. In those days, there were a lot of BBA production, a lot of students, and they were not getting even intern chances. Then I heard that there is law courses, 5-year law, and I told her, BBA na pada, sabaile padna thalyo, aptharo huncha, naya kura pada. And she agreed. She said, "Bua hazurle je bhanuncha त्यही पढ्छु." And I took her to law. Today she is a lawyer, she is earning a lot of money. Fine. दुवैजना ठिक छ. So my daughter followed me because for her this question, who I am, was I am a daughter, I am a wife, I am a mother. So in the second sense of identity, you focus more on the other. You focus more on the other. You feel that you are part of family, part of neighborhood, part of society, part of country. I live for my father, I live for my son, I live for my family. I earn money for my wife, I earn money for my children, I earn money for my temple. I live for the wider society. One sense of identity. Another, I live for myself. Narrow sense of it. One is independent identity. Let me write here. One is independent identity. Another is interdependent identity. So the question is, let me again end up by concluding here, where we got the yes. Identity constitutional variations. In Western cultures, identity is independent. In Asian cultures, South Asian cultures, Nepali cultures, identity is interdependent, right? Low context versus, we'll discuss this in next class. We have come to the end of the class, right? Now, tomorrow when you come to class, you will come with handwritten answers of those 99 questions. You would submit. If you fail to submit the answers, I'll put out of class. I'll put you out of class. I will simply put you out of class if you fail to submit me a neatly handwritten answer of those 99 questions. By tomorrow morning, you will get another set of 99 questions for second section. And if you answer those questions with reading and handwriting, you will understand the section. You will understand. Thank you.